I was 13 when I found out that CF was a terminal illness. One of the misconceptions is that CF is cured, and that's just not true. This is a hurry, especially people with more progressive stages of cystic fibrosis. My fear for the community is that we're putting people that have rare mutations to the side. My fear is that there's just not going to be access for the people that are like me. I grew up in the suburbs of Boston. So I'm hard of hearing. When I was 2, I did a hearing test because I was having problems at preschool. People ask if it's CF related. It's kind of hard to tell. I have cystic fibrosis. It's a genetic disease that predominantly affects the lungs and digestive system.
Cystic fibrosis is a genetic condition that is passed from one family member onto another, and it is caused by a mutation that affects a chloride channel. And this chloride channel is throughout the body, and when it's not acting normally, it causes sticky secretions. And so when that's in the lungs, it can cause mucus buildup, which can lead to infections in the lungs and chronic lung disease. And that's one of the main problems from cystic fibrosis. But it also affects other organs like the pancreas. People with cystic fibrosis may not be able to absorb food very well. Diabetes can really affect the whole body.
My daily routine, I get up in the morning, I do my treatments first, so I do an hour of pulmonary therapy, airway clearance, which is my vest, and I do my nebulizers and inhalers. Before I eat, I also do another set of airway clearance, and then the same thing at nighttime. I do another hour of airway clearance before bedtime. It sounds like a lot for someone who doesn't have CF to do that much airway clearance every day, but relative to CF, it's not that much.
There's a new type of medicine out called CFTR modulators, and these have really revolutionized CF care.
Is a huge breakthrough announced today for people with cystic fibrosis, a rare and life-threatening disease with no cure.
It is the first therapy able to treat 90% of patients with the rare life-threatening disease.
It's called Trikafta, a triple combination therapy approved for patients 12 and older.
These medicines you take by mouth, and what they do is they actually, at the cellular level, correct the malfunctioning chloride channel. So some of them will correct the shape, and those are CFTR correctors. Some of them will help produce more of the chloride channel, so it allows that chloride channel to transport chloride better. And so the mucus is less sticky. And so in the lungs, the mucus doesn't get stuck in the lungs. Patients actually cough up all that mucus after they start this therapy, and then their lungs are cleaner and clearer. People with cystic fibrosis often have chronic infections, and some of those chronic infections are clearing, so they don't need to be on as many chronic antibiotic therapies.
It's changed my life. Before I was on Trikafta, historically I was being admitted to the hospital about 3 times a year, up all night coughing, high fevers, you just felt like you were drowning in your own lungs. Trikafta has allowed me to stay out of the hospital, allowed me to continue to work, provide for my family, and has really maintained my lung function and improved my quality of life. Prior to that, it's kind of words that you'd never want to have your wife hear, but I was on a work trip in Maine, had a couple really bad lung infections, and this was probably the second week I was not on IV antibiotics. Got up, did my morning workout, got in the shower, and all of a sudden I felt like I was fainting. I ended up collapsing, hitting my head, and I was using all the strength that I had to get up, and I couldn't. I'm sitting here and I thought this was the end. And I remember just using my Hey Siri to call my wife. And I left my wife a message, said, "I'm sorry, this is not how I thought it was gonna go. I love you, please give my daughter a hug." And it just ended up, that lung infection just still wasn't cleared. Fast forward a month later, I finally was able to get on Trikafta. I immediately, within 2 days, felt the results of it. If I was sitting for an extended period of times before I was on Trikafta, I'd run up the stairs and I'd have a coughing fit for about 5 minutes. I couldn't do it. I want to say on the third day of Trikafta, sitting in this exact chair, my daughter's crying, I just hopped up and went upstairs. My wife kind of looked at me and was like, wow.
Keep it core.
We immediately saw a result, able to breathe clearer, less coughing. My workouts improved dramatically within a week. Since I've been on Trikafta, I've been able to maintain my lung function, and I haven't had any admittances to the hospital.
I've had patients who were scheduled to go for lung transplants, and now their lungs are too healthy. CFTR modulators are really helping improve lung function, which has just been life-changing and life-extending for so many patients.
I could only imagine from a fitness level and challenges I have in life that if I was able to get this drug 10 years prior in my early 30s, how much my life would be improved to this day. For the younger CF patients that got this in their late teen years, I'm so happy for them because I know their lives are going to be vastly improved by this drug.
What do you know about the vest? What have you seen?
All I know is that it goes on her and then it kind of like pounds, right?
Let's say taps.
Taps, okay. So
It
it taps to make sure like her mucus doesn't build up, right?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
It really doesn't.
I remember doing a report in school on cystic fibrosis, but I never thought that down the road we would have a child with it.
I want to listen to her.
Okay.
And then I can show you the vest and sort of how it works.
We found out through genetic testing with the pregnancy. They tested me and it came back that I am a carrier of cystic fibrosis. It came back that he was also a carrier, which was a big shock. And they say that it's a 25% chance of your baby having cystic fibrosis if both parents are carriers. And so we were like, okay, well, at least like the odds are in our favor that she won't have cystic fibrosis, but she did, and she does, and she's great.
Good job.
That is awesome.
As soon as I found out that we had a child with cystic fibrosis, that was the first thing I thought of, is that they're gonna tell me that she's not gonna live to 2, and they're gonna tell me that she's not gonna live to 5.
Put your arm
Can
in.
you put your arm in there?
There we go. So pretty.
I didn't know all of the leaps and bounds that they had made with cystic fibrosis research and all of this stuff. All I kept thinking was that someone's going to tell me that my kid is going to die. How do you prepare yourself for that? You can't.
We're going to do this. Boom. And the other side.
The first time that I met her pulmonology doctor, Dr. Yonker, she said, you know, it's not the way it used to be. Medicine is so amazing right now, and we don't have to put an expiration date on your child's life. There's no reason to believe that she is not going to fulfill a long, happy life just like the rest of us. Easier of a pill to swallow once, you know, they said that there's no expiration date on her. So, happy.
Okay, ready? Shake, shake, shake. Wow.
Is that silly? Is it tickle?
Harlow's not eligible for Trikafta yet because Trikafta is only available for kids 6 years and older, but we expect there are clinical trials underway that are looking at Trikafta in younger kids, so I expect that she'll have Trikafta available to her before she turns 6.
I'll undo this. Honey, there you go. Oh, here. There you go.
The fact that Trikafta has come out, it has raised the hope of so many people, because I think all those younger kids that were struggling have so much more hope, and it really has changed their thought process and their outlook on life.
When babies are born, it's a really different conversation rather than saying, we're optimistic, we think there's going to be a hope. These treatments are here, and it's changed how we frame the conversations, and we got to keep you healthy until these medicines are available for you. The life expectancy has increased by over 10 years since I've started. Once we got to a life expectancy of 40, that was exciting, and now we're up above 50.
I'm definitely excited to see her become who she's meant to be. Get married if she wants, and start a family of her own and do all of these things. I can't wait to watch every little step along the way. Can't ask for anything more.
Hi, buddy. You ready to walk and roll?
Vertex had accomplished something major. How people have responded coming off lung transplant lists and so forth really just bears testament to the accomplishment of coming up with this medicine. It was the launching point to really have highly efficacious medicines for many people. Unfortunately, not for everybody, though, who is basically living with cystic fibrosis. The medicines that Vertex brought to the market were developed mostly in the lab with the most common mutation, delta F508, which is found in almost 90% of all people with CF in the US.
Less than 10% of patients with cystic fibrosis aren't responsive to these treatments, to these modulators. The most common mutation for cystic fibrosis is delta F508. The vast majority of patients have a delta F508, but delta F508 is the most common mutation in Caucasians. Cystic fibrosis can occur in many different races and ethnicities. It turns out that of those less than 10% who make those stop codons or don't make a protein and therefore are not eligible for these modulators are much more common in minorities or non-Caucasians. Not only are these patients who aren't eligible for these exciting therapies not able to benefit, but we're realizing that there's really this racial divergence that's been happening.
One of the misconceptions is that everybody with CF looks like they do in the textbook you saw 20 years ago. My father is first-generation American, he's Colombian, and my mother is Ashkenazi Jewish. They told me that people that are Hispanic could not have cystic fibrosis. It was a Caucasian disease. Because my father is Colombian, I could not have cystic fibrosis. We still kind of face these same stereotypes in the community now. I can't take Trikafta because of my mutations. I have 2 rare mutations of cystic fibrosis. There are thousands of mutations that cause cystic fibrosis, and I have 2 of them, one from my mother, one from my father.
Less than 10% of these patients don't even make a protein. They have mutations that have stop codons, so no protein is made. So there's no protein for these treatments to work with.
You know, if you only make half of a car, the car doesn't drive. The same is true for if you have only half a protein, it cannot function. If you have only half a thing, there's also nothing to rescue really with these kind of medicines.
These patients, again, can't take these really life-extending, life-altering medications and have to not only continue to struggle with the work of keeping themselves healthy, but also they're on the sidelines watching this whole community of 90+% of people who have these life-extending, amazing medicines, and they're not able to participate.
The approval of Trikafta came at an incredibly fortuitous time. It was right before the pandemic would hit. I think it's pretty clear that 90% of the CF community, getting access to Trikafta before the pandemic certainly saved thousands of CF lives, and so incredibly grateful for that. But it really felt like we were being left behind. It was like, 90% of the CF community was being lifted from this sinking ship, and 10% of us were still there, still sinking. Emily's Entourage is a 501c3 that my family and friends and I founded back in 2011. We were really spurred by desperation, and so we dove in headfirst and we started Emily's Entourage with the singular goal of accelerating research and drug development for those in the final 10% that wouldn't benefit from these new advances. That involves funding research. We have a patient registry and a clinical trial matchmaking program where we help expedite clinical trial recruitment. We serve as really a hub of that final 10% of the CF community. I currently have very advanced stages of cystic fibrosis. I have about 30% lung function. That is the territory where you start exploring lung transplant, and also the territory where you no longer qualify for clinical trials because you're too sick and your disease is too advanced. In addition to having 30% lung function, I also have CF-related diabetes, and I also have pulmonary hypertension secondary to lung disease. A lot of these complications are a result of living for such a long time with such advanced disease and such low lung function. It takes a toll on your whole body. For the past 3 years, I've been living in isolation because of the risks of COVID, given how advanced my CF is. If I were to contract COVID, it could be really catastrophic. I've lost countless numbers of very close friends to CF over the years. Knowing that they died at the hands of the disease that you're living with yourself, it makes you so angry at CF. And to feel so angry at something that lives within inside you too is just a really confusing and emotional and hard to process feeling. And then also, there's an element of fear. So you see your friends, you see their diseases progress, and it's a roadmap for you too of what lies ahead. And that's terrifying.
CF is very fickle, even if you're a mild CF. You don't know what you're going to get.
When you're a teenager and when you're 20s and when you're in your 30s, you're not supposed to be surrounded by so much loss. And in the CF community, we are. And I think that's changing for those in the 90%. Their life expectancy is already significantly surpasses what it has ever been before. But for those of us in the final 10%, it isn't. It's still the same terrible statistics and terrible reality. I believe really exciting things are coming for the final 10%, really determined to be able to sustain myself, to be able to hopefully benefit from them in the future. What I am particularly worried about right now is that because of the incredible progress for 90% of the CF community, there is this misperception among the general public and among funders that CF is done, that it's solved.
you walk into clinic and people think, oh, you know, CF is cured, you know, that we already have a treatment for this that takes care of everybody. And, you know, you run into that misconception over and over and over again.
Not only is that not true for anyone in the CF community, treatments offer control, but they are not cures. But it is especially not true for the 10% who are still not able to benefit from them.
Modulators are really a great treatment, but if you don't take it, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work for everybody.
I think my fear for the community is that if we're putting people that have rare mutations in a box, my fear is that there's just not going to be access for the people that are like me. Things can change in the blink of an eye, so I think that that's kind of the urgency.
At a broader level, I think what the 10% represents is every single person that has been left behind or silenced or forgotten or shoved in a corner or told they don't matter. That is a message that is relatable to so many people. You don't need to suffer from a fatal genetic disease to relate to that. We've come so far, and now it just feels like the last push.
We are excited about the progress that was made, but we will not stop until we have a therapy, a cure for everybody. We really then focusing on genetic therapies that we call mutation agnostic, meaning that really they would help any and every person with a mutation. And there's already 2 of those in clinical trials right now, which is mRNA delivery. So there you would basically deliver a healthy copy of the blueprint to make this protein. If we deliver basically a healthy blueprint, obviously we can deliver that to anybody. And then we're working ultimately for the cure on gene editing approaches, where we would also look to replace most of the cystic fibrosis gene. It would be independent of what specific genotype, what specific mutation somebody has.
I fight because I'm curious about tomorrow. I believe that the future is better. I believe there's a lot we can do to change the negative experiences we have. I really want to work to fix those things that I see. And if we're all working together, that's what I'm, fighting for, a better tomorrow.